Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Above the Bar podcast, a show about a middle-aged father, current events, and how these things affect my everyday life. Alrighty, folks, welcome to another episode of the Above the Bar podcast. It's your host, Sean. Hope everyone's having a great week so far, surviving the snow. Today we're going to be talking about a documentary I just recently watched called Conviction on on Amazon Prime. Hopefully our guest will make it in here. Her name is Jia Wertz, so we'll keep an eye out, see if she pops up at the front door of the bar. The documentary is pretty interesting. Just to kind of touch base about what it is. It's not a long one. It's not one of these ones that you're going to spend all day watching. It's only 21 minutes long. It's about a gentleman named Jeffrey Descovich down in Peekskill. And for all my railroad buffs that are out there watching along with me, the opening scene is actually a Amtrak train going past the Peekskill station. So if you're into all the train stuff, you'll actually see that right away as soon as you jump on there. So, interesting subject here. So what happened to this young man was at age 16, he was hanging out with a friend and they were doing like a project for school. Well, in the meantime, while he's doing the project for school, a couple of days later, she shows up missing and she's dead. She had been raped and she had been murdered. Well, the police go to him and say, well, why don't you come help us out with this and see what you can come up with and see if you have any information. And you find out in the documentary, it's pretty impressive. You find out during the documentary that as a kid, he actually wanted to be a cop. So to have the police coming to him, saying to him, oh, well, why don't you come help us out and, see what you can figure out and see if you can help us figure out what's going on here. It was a pretty big thing for the kid, 16 years old. And he was actually, the reason the police started talking to him was because other kids in school thought, well, he's quiet. He must be able to kill somebody. So just because a bunch of other kids thought he had done it in 1987 or 89, they blamed this kid and said, oh, he must be the one. So they came looking for him. Gentleman spent 16 years of his life in jail for a murder he didn't commit, for a rape he didn't commit. And during all this time, he talks about the fact that he put out messages to all these different law enforcement agencies, all these different groups, trying to get a hold of them to say, hey, can you help me? Can you help me? Went through all of his appeals process. And he talks about even the fact that his own family basically left him high and dry and didn't want to talk to him because even they thought maybe he had done it. So, again, definitely would highly recommend it. It's, again, called Conviction. It's on I'm having a brain fart today. It's on Amazon Prime. Definitely a good one. The best part about it that I think you'll learn is during the whole process of all this, he ends up getting out of jail and getting his law degree. When he gets his law degree, he's not bitter about anything. He's not upset. He ends up going and helping other people who were convicted wrongly to get out of jail. So in he talked about it in the documentary in 2019, he actually was able to help 9 other people who were wrongly convicted to get out of jail so that, they didn't have to deal with it. So that's today's recommendation. Like I said, we were supposed to have Miss Jia Wertz here. Hopefully she'll pop back on. Other than that, if anybody's out there watching, I guess this will be one of those interactive days for us. What's everybody watching? What's everybody checking out? I know up here in the Great White North, we've had so much snow, and down in the Mid-Atlantic, I think this is one of those few occasions where we were forced to stay indoors and didn't know what to do with it or why we were there. So what's everybody watching right now? I just checked out another good one called Warrior. Oh, look, Johnny Tuma's watching. Johnny Tuma's definitely watching something. I have to see if he actually can throw out any good ideas. But we started watching a really good one recently. Tim says he's taking a sip of pick 6. Goodness gracious. Can't even get it out of my mouth today. Great vodka that we had on last week. If you haven't tried it, definitely would highly recommend to get out there and try Pick Six from Saratoga Courage. But I started watching Warrior on HBO Max. Oh, wait a second. Here we go, folks. Miss Jia is in there. Miss Jia, how are you? Can you hear us? I can see you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. How are you?
Good. How are you? I was just just a moment ago giving the lowdown on the documentary that I had watched it and everything, and talking about Jeffrey's story. Thank you.
Oh, nice. Thank you for having me. I'm sorry I kept you waiting. I have a toddler, so I just had to get him situated so he doesn't barge in on us.
Look, I would be completely okay with that because my 3-year-old at any moment could come barging in also, so it's completely acceptable.
Well, I also have a 3-year-old, so we completely get each other.
They have no sense of timing or no sense of can you just give daddy a moment? Give me a moment here. They don't care about any of it.
No, and they don't care what you're doing or who you're talking to or what time of day it is. I mean, it can be this time or it can be 3 a.m. It doesn't matter.
See, we didn't even need to talk about the documentary. We could have talked about 3-year-olds the entire time here.
Absolutely, we can.
We've made it through like 80% of potty training.
Yes,
but we haven't got the overnight piece.
Same with us. We're 100% good in the day. We've been there for quite a while, but not the overnight. Same.
Not happening.
Yeah, it's. I feel like every few days we're getting there because we have 3 days of nothing at night, and then forget about it. It's all back to square one.
Well, so let's get into your documentary here, because I watched it about a week ago, and I got to give you the first thank you is the opening scene in Peekskill. So in my other life, I'm an Amtrak conductor.
You said that, yes.
So when I saw the train go blowing by, I told all the buddies at work, I was like, look at this right here. Look, that's somebody we know. I couldn't see what engine number it was, but knowing the guys I work with, some of them really get into the whole train piece. They could tell you where it is.
So I can't tell you how many train shots I shot. I mean, in Ossining, in Peekskill, all over. I love trains and I love shooting them. And so I only use that one, but in my next film, I will be using more, but I have at least 20 or 30 shots of the
wow. So that's funny that you're very that you're so into it. We're going to sidetrack from it. So I knew nothing about the train world growing up. I grew up in Baltimore.
Yeah.
Trains were freight trains or so some subway here and there. I didn't know anybody who took Amtrak, at least myself personally. I got onto the railroad and I didn't realize this is the largest hobby in the world is taking pictures of trains.
Is it? I didn't know that either.
It's like, it's the thing to do is I have a really good friend of mine. So you know the walking bridge in Poughkeepsie that goes over the Hudson?
I don't, but
you got to go see it. It's the tallest walking bridge I think in the world. What used to be a railroad bridge.
Oh, that's cool.
And a buddy of mine from work built an entire scale model of it, like from the ground up. Never existed anywhere before. It's such a big thing.
That's awesome. I mean, that's of course not the same at all, but like the High Line in New York.
I've walked the High Line more times than I can count.
Oh, it's so amazing. Yeah, it's such great use of the land and it's repurposed, and they left parts of the train tracks throughout the plants and stuff. It's so cool.
My kids like it when you first come up. I don't know which street I'm coming up at, but they've got the underground play area, and they can pop their heads out. My kids love that.
So, are you in New York?
I am. I'm in the Albany area.
Oh, no way. Okay, so I live in New York by Grand Central Station.
GCT is one of my. So I have a fat kid that lives in my soul. So GCT was so amazing to eat at. I know we're going to talk about your documentary, but if you ever get a chance and you're in GCT, down on the bottom level, where all the food court is, you got to go to the ice cream shop that's across from Chickpea.
Yep.
$5 ice cream sandwich that's got to be an inch and a half, 2 inches thick with 2 cookies on each side of it.
So I've been down there more times than I can count, but I've never tried that. So I'm
It's
totally
so
going
good.
to.
There and up the street, I love all the food courts that are up the road from there. The where it's like a whole bunch of different places
Yeah,
all
the
inside.
food halls. Yes.
Yes, there's one.
Yes.
I don't know the name of it. It's up the road, but I like roti. I love roti.
Yeah.
One of my and there's a place up there that does one that's just amazing.
I've had it because we go to that one that's right up the street from Grand Central
Yes.
Station all the time. Yeah, it's like just a block and a half, like outside of the
Yes,
station.
that's yes.
Yes,
I
I know
love it.
exactly where you're talking about.
You have folks, if you have look, New York City is the American version of Venice for me. I always tell people when I went to Venice, if you look up in Venice,
Yeah.
it's the most beautiful place you'll ever go in your life.
Yeah.
The second you look down in Venice, you're like, ooh, like I was in the Marine Corps when I went to Venice, and they were like, if you fall in the canals,
Yeah.
it was some ridiculous amount of like 10, 12 shots you have to get
Yeah,
after
for
you fall
bacteria
in.
and
Yeah,
stuff.
like
Yeah.
all grossness. And I'm thinking, wait a sec. So I'm on the same page then here with New York City. But
Yeah.
let's get into documentary because
Yeah.
now I'm off on a tangent. I'm sorry. So now let's start with you as a filmmaker. You didn't start off like coming out of high school, going to college for filmmaking, none of that. So
None of that. Yeah, I went out of high school and worked in the fashion industry. And then I took a few years off and I went back to college and I went to school for fashion merchandising and marketing as well. And I loved it. I thought I'd like hit the jackpot. It was an industry at the time that I thought was so fun to work at. And I was, 19 years old. And I was like, I'm getting paid to work with clothes and it's a hobby of mine. So I thought it was just like the best job ever. And then as I got into my late 30s, I was not fulfilled at all. I didn't love working in the fashion industry anymore. I could really care less about the clothes and stuff. I mean, I still like them as a personal, preference and a hobby, but I didn't care about selling clothes for big corporations and stuff like that. And so I just was losing interest. And when I was the same age, around 19 or so, when I first started in the fashion industry, I had read a book, and it was Reuben Carter's book called The 16th Round. And that book, till this day, is my favorite book still. Is such a great book. And that story, for anyone who doesn't know it, or if you haven't read it.
No, I've never read it.
You have to. I'm going to send you a copy. You have to read it. It is Reuben Carter's story. He was a famous boxer in New Jersey in the 60s. And, he was a famous person and he was a boxer, and he was wrongfully convicted of a murder that he didn't commit. And he would end up going to prison for that, for that murder. Yeah. And then he wrote this book, The 16th Round, because he had exhausted all of his appeals, and he kind of wrote it as a plea to the public to help him. Like anybody, that hears my story that can do anything, because he had nowhere to turn. And as a result, these few Canadians heard of his story and they started investigating his case just on their own. They were like these Canadian hippies, but, wonderful people. And they ended up getting him out, which is crazy. It's such a crazy story. And actually, if you watched The Hurricane, Denzel Washington's movie.
Yep.
That's based on The 16th Round. That's based on his book. So you'd know the story that way. So anyways, ever since I read that book, I was really passionate about wrongful convictions, because it was really jarring to hear how it was such a raw account of somebody who's innocent, who's been put through this experience and is put in jail and forgotten about, and has, the legal system is keeping him there and he has no way to get out, and he could spend his whole life there. It was terrifying to me when I read it. I was like, how could this be happening to anybody? And so it always stayed in my mind, and I always was passionate about this cause. And then in 2015, Serial came out. And this is around the time that I was kind of not wanting to work in the fashion industry anymore. And I loved that podcast, and it was such a great story, but I was left feeling the same way as when I read that book. I was like, this is someone's real life. Like, it was a very entertaining podcast, but somebody is actually sitting in prison behind bars who's innocent. And how are we all just going to listen to this story and then just move on with our day-to-day lives? And so I thought, what could I do to help Adnan, who's the subject of Serial? And so there wasn't much I could do, of course, because I'm not a lawyer or anything like that. And so I thought I could at least raise some money for his legal defense fund. So in New York, I organized a fundraiser. It was like local acts and bands. And I made these free Adnan shirts with my fashion company, since that's something I had the ability to do. Yeah. And we sold them, and we sold tickets to the event. And we ended up raising a few $1,000s that night. And through the course of the process of organizing the fundraiser, I ended up meeting Adnan's family, and they were just the nicest people I've ever met. They're friends of mine today, and they're just so wonderful. And as I was looking for a speaker for that fundraiser, my friend said, I know a guy, and he has a very similar story. And she introduced me to Jeff, and Jeff is who my film is about.
Like, I just got chills. I'm gonna be honest with you. I got chills. It's one of those kind of stories. Now, I don't know Adnan's story. Now, what was that about? I didn't listen to Serial. I never listened to Serial. So I didn't get into this whole genre till probably on the backside of it. Like Michael Conley. I listened to his show, which is phenomenal. If you like that in this genre, you have to listen to Michael Conley Murder Book.
Okay.
Oh my God. And it gets into a situation where a guy on the other side of it should have been convicted and skirts the legal system for almost 30 years before they're able to put him behind bars.
Wow.
And he learned how to play the system. But who is Adnan? Tell me about Adnan.
Adnan Syed, he's the subject of Serial. That's how his story kind of got, well known around the world. But he was a 17-year-old kid in high school. He dated a girl, Heyman Lee, when he was, I think, 16 or 17, and they had broken up. And then a few months or a couple months after they broke up, I don't know the timing on that for sure, she was murdered. And he, it was a similar story to Jeff. They were just high school classmates. They knew each other, obviously. And the detectives, when they came to investigate to see what happened, they really just pinned it on Adnan. And there's no evidence. The DNA doesn't match him. There's no evidence, putting him in any of the story.
No link whatsoever between him and this situation.
Yes, and the only link that they have is actually false. They said his cell phone pinged a tower where her body was found, but it turns out that something about in the 90s when incoming calls came in, they weren't accurate for your location. They were only accurate for like the person making the call or something like that, the person who initiated. And so he wasn't actually in that location. And anyways, they had the time of the murder wrong and everything. So they just kind of finagled the whole thing to pin it on him. And now he's in prison for life, and he's, turning 40 soon. And he's been there since he was 17.
He's still there now?
Yep, he's still there now. And then a couple years ago, when actually the crazy thing about how my film came about, I'll tell you in a second. But I was at Adnan's post-conviction hearing in Baltimore. So this whole story takes place in Baltimore, by the way. Adnan, all of them are.
How could I'm from Baltimore.
You have to listen to Serial, and you have to listen to Truth and Justice and Undisclosed. They're the two podcasts that followed the story after Serial ended, and they really are the ones that uncover everything that's happened, all the corruption and things like that in the case. You got to listen to them. And
I'm from there.
Yeah, you have to, for sure. So I took a train from New York to Baltimore one day to go to his post-conviction hearing. And I'll tell you what happened at the hearing, and I'll tell you what has to do with my film. What happened at that hearing is Adnan's conviction got overturned. So he was going to get a fair trial. He was going to get a retrial, which hopefully would have been a fair trial. And the prosecutor, who is also very questionable, really, they appealed it, and they got that overturned conviction flipped in an appeal. So then they denied him a retrial, and now he's just in prison and with really no options at the moment. And it's heartbreaking, just heartbreaking. But what happened when I was in Baltimore at that post-conviction hearing is there was a camera crew, and they were filming. And there was just like 3 people. It was like a cameraman, I think a producer, and maybe somebody else. Maybe it was just 2 people. I don't remember for sure. And the family ended up telling us, hey, you can't say anything because it's not revealed to the public yet, but we're filming an HBO documentary called The Case Against Adnan Syed, and that's why the cameras are here. So, you might be on camera, yada, yada, in the background. And so that was fine. There was a bunch of us at dinner after the court proceedings. And so fast forward, that HBO doc came out. It's really popular. You could watch that as well. But I was at that hearing, and this is right around the time I was trying to figure out what can I do to support this cause more than just donating my time or money, because it felt like I'm just one person. That's a very little bit of time and a very little bit of money in the big picture. And I saw this camera crew filming, and I had a 20-year background in photography, and my naive self, knowing nothing about the film industry, I walked out of there. I went home and I was like, I can make movies. I can make films about this. That's how I can like get the message out to more people. And I talked to my husband and he was like, that's kind of crazy, but you could try it. And I enrolled in film school and I took a workshop and I just ran with it. And I started making this film about Jeff.
Now, your husband must just be a very understanding man who's like, all right, so you got a fashion career, you're doing pretty good for yourself. We're just gonna make movies now. Okay.
Yeah, he really is. He really is. And he helped me with the movie too. I mean, he's great because it was he was like, he did say like the only thing he said, which was, I think, really nice of him to say it this way, but he was like, that's like one of the hardest industries to break into. Are you sure that's what you want to do at like 40?
Yeah. And that's the other thing to this is it, like I said, you said it, you were 30 years old. You kind of like, at 40 years old, you hooked a left and just said, I'm going to go ahead and do movies now. I've already got people in clothes. I put clothes on them. Now I'm going to film them. That's wild. So now somebody introduced you to Jeff.
Yeah, the friend of mine who it's everything about this is so funny, and I really do believe in signs and things like that a little bit. And it was the craziest thing. Me and this other woman who was a stranger to me, we're both on Twitter constantly talking about Adnan's case from Serial and checking in with his family members on Twitter. We didn't know them at this point, just saying, is he okay? Is there any updates? What's happening? And every time I would write something to Rabia, who is Adnan's family member who brought the story to Serial, I would see this other girl who I didn't know. It was just a Twitter name. Her name was Marion. And she would always be writing similar things. And then one day I wrote, I'm in New York. If there's anything I can do, let me know. And she had written just before me or just after me the same thing. I'm in New York. Let me know if there's anything I can do. And this is around the time I was going to be planning the fundraiser. And so I was like, wait, she's in New York and she's as passionate about it as I am. So I tweeted her. I said, hey, Marion, you don't know me, but my name is Jia and I'm also in New York. And I wonder if we could get together and chat. And she thought I was a psychopath. And so she Googled me. And luckily I had, somewhat of a web presence. So she found me online and saw that, I have a real job and I'm not a lunatic and stuff. And so then she was like, well, let's meet for coffee and we'll see. And we met for coffee. And today, fast forward 4 years, whatever it's been, she's one of my closest friends. She's so wonderful. And she is the one who ended up planning the fundraiser with me. And she's the one who was a friend of Jeff's. And she had met him at a party. She was an acquaintance of Jeff, I should say. And she introduced me to Jeff. It was bizarre.
His story, so his story, I just have to tell folks, when you initially watch it and you listen, you see him on the couch, and I'll try to paint the picture the best I can, and you tell me if I get it right.
Okay.
Folks, you're going to see him sitting on a couch, and he is the most unassuming. You'd walk past him on any given day kind of guy. It's not like he's like a physical presence that you're like, oh, I could see why somebody would think it's him. And he starts to tell his story of how it happened and how they got to him. And I'll leave that to you because I mean, I want to know what it was like to sit there across from Jeff and look in his eyes as he's telling you, I'm 16 years old and this is what's going on. He doesn't even know what's happening to him. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's crazy. Mm-hmm. I think that was as a parent, I think that what was so gut wrenching to me was watching him and going, I didn't know what was happening to me. Mm-hmm. Nobody was telling him. Nobody could get it through to him. Yeah. What was that like listening to that?
It was heartbreaking. It was very, very heartbreaking. And that's what it is about wrongful convictions that really gets me going because I can't imagine anyone going through this. And, I have two brothers that are just slightly younger than me. And so for me, I often think of them because unfortunately this happens to men, seems like a lot more often it happens to women. And I think, thank God they didn't come across a bad detective or, a corrupt prosecutor and that this didn't happen to them. That's kind of what was the original, like you said, as a parent, I was like, as an older sister at the time, I felt like, if there was if my brother was in this position, or either my brothers were in this position, if there was anybody that could have helped them, I only wish that they would. And that was kind of my first driving factor to want to help Anon and, and tell Jeff's story. But yeah, to what you were saying, it's heartbreaking to hear Jeff talk about it. And even now, I mean, he's mid 40s and he's 45-ish, 46.
Yeah, like he's right. I'm 44.
Yeah. I'm 43. Exactly. We're all in the same age bracket there. And he still, I saw him get teary a couple of times interviewing him, and it still really hurts him a lot. And it's so sad. One of the things that hurts him the most today, which is crazy to think because he was almost killed in prison. I can't imagine what else he's
really.
been through.
I don't even remember that in the documentary. What happened there?
Yeah, actually, it's not. So you watched the short documentary. I'm working on the feature length right now. So I'm working on the full hour-and-a-half long version, and it will be in the next film. But he was attacked by other prisoners, but I forget what it was. It was like cement blocks or 2x4s, and they smashed him in the head, and they tried to kill him. And it was because in prison, there's like I think he mentioned there's a vigilante mentality around sex offenders, and they thought he was a sex offender because the woman that was a girl that was murdered in his school was raped and murdered. And so they kind of came after him for that, which is also bizarre to think that there's this kind of these rules in prison about crimes.
There is definitely there's a rules, there's hierarchy.
Yes. Yes. So, yeah.
The whole thing with a lot of them, you can tell guys that have gone to jail who are sex offenders, when they come out, they'll have a big scar down their face.
Oh, really?
So that scar marks them so that any other inmate knows, like, hey, that guy right there, that's what he's done. And those guys will try to avoid being roommates or cellmates with guys like that, because the other side is if you're a cellmate with those guys, somebody will think, well, they're only putting you in his cell because you must be the same way.
Yeah.
So they're grouping you together. So that makes sense that Jeff would have dealt with that. Now, did he go right to adult prison?
He did.
So 16 years old, he was in Sing Sing.
He ended his last 30 days-ish, I think 28 to 30 days in Sing Sing. Before that, he was in Elmira and Shawagunk. So I forget which one he went to first, but he was in those three over the course of his 16 years in prison. And what I was going to say is, after everything he's been through, I mean, not only the time in prison, how terrifying it must have been. He was almost killed. I'm sure other things happened he hasn't talked about. Right. And still, when he gets teary-eyed today when I was interviewing, it's because he's like, I wish somebody would apologize. Like, I wish anybody that was involved would just say sorry, and nobody has ever to him, they won't. But it's so heartbreaking that, like, that's all he's asking for,
Well, Elmira's a scary place because, don't ask why I know the things I know. I find myself researching. I'm definitely a rabbit hole researcher. I start looking up things. Elmira, and somebody on here, one of my four watchers will double check me, but I think Elmira is the location of the first ever death penalty by electric chair in the United States was Elmira.
Oh, really?
Yes. Elmira has a history. I'm almost sure it's Elmira, but don't quote. It's somewhere out that way. It's definitely somewhere.
I had no idea.
I fell into this rabbit hole because a place I hunted in New York is it's an old army base that the state of New York took over, and now that's part of 5-star prison. Yeah. In New York. I don't know if you ever seen that one. That's the maximum security prison for the state of New York is 5-star.
Oh, I never heard of that.
5-star or 5 point. Maybe it's 5 point. Either way, it's up in by Syracuse.
Oh, okay.
So you see Jeff, and I know for me, there was 2 incidents in this documentary and I want folks, please take the time, go into your Amazon Prime Video, watch Conviction. It's 21 minutes. Take the time to watch this. If you don't get sucked right into it, I don't, again, as a parent, as a friend, if you don't watch this and think to yourself, I knew a kid, because Jeff says this in there, and I mentioned it earlier, he makes the comment, they only pointed at me because I was quiet. And that to me was just so brutal to point at a guy and go, you must be able to kill someone because you're just not talking, because you're socially awkward. And remember, this is in the late, was it 87 or 89?
89.
So in 1989, how many of us knew anyone who was diagnosed with Asperger's, or if you were autistic at the time, you were completely nonverbal. You had to be at the far end nonverbal. Not saying Jeff is that way or anything, but his social awkwardness today, we would have categorized it as something. We would have given it a name. We would have put it somewhere. Back then, well, you're a quiet kid and you could just kill somebody.
Mm-hmm. And frankly, he could have just been a reserved person. I was in school. Well, anyone would have described me as awkward in school for sure. That's what got me too. It's crazy to think that other high school students could say this one little thing, and that would be enough for seasoned detectives to turn their attention on you and then keep going when even the DNA and other actual hard evidence doesn't match you. It's crazy.
And I got to tell you, folks, when you watch it, you can see certain things about him. I have a lot of children, Jia. I have way too many. I'm just going to say that.
How many?
When my wife and I got together, I had 3 sons. She had 2 sons and 2 daughters, and then we have 1 together. So
wow.
8. So we have a lot of kids, but I can, most of us remember when our kids started driving, you always sat close to the steering wheel.
Yep.
If you watch this documentary, and that was one of the first things I noticed about Jeff, and it might be just me, he sits almost on top of the steering wheel. He's a 40-some-year-old man, but he says he's like, I'm only 25 mentally.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how long he had been out when you filmed this, because he got out at what, 32 or 33?
Yeah, something like that. He was in for 16 years. I think he was 17 by the time he went in once the trial ended, and then he was in for 16 years. So, around there, right around that age. And I only filmed it, a year and a half ago. So,
and you see it, like he's still, and I don't mean childlike, but he still has those, hey, I'm not used to doing these things. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, folks, when you watch it and you hear things like, he was dating the psychiatrist. Mm-hmm. I'm going to give the whole I'm trying not to give the whole documentary. Go find out about when he dated the psychiatrist, because I don't want to give the whole Like, I was my best friend Ken. Like, I finished the documentary and I'm like, Ken, you got to watch this right now. I'm tweeting, like, he's like, where is it? I'm like, go watch it. It's on Amazon Prime. I know you got it. I'm like, I'm firing it off. I'm coming into work the next day and I'm telling people, like, you've got to watch this. Somebody told me, and I don't know if it's the same one. Are they doing a series about him also, about Jeff, like on one of the series channels?
No, I don't think so. I'm working possibly on a series about, and I don't want to give away the end of the film either, but you know what the end is. And so what Jeff is doing after where the film ends, I'm going to work on a series about his work after the fact.
I swear to you on all that's holy, when it was done, I wanted to hug Jeff.
Yeah, I know.
He makes, and you'll know why if you watch it. But I physically was like, if I saw this dude, I don't know him from Adam, I would hug him because he deserves this.
Well, you can. He also lives in, New York.
Yeah, we're all new. I'm not a New Yorker. I am stuck here. They all think I sound funny with my mid-Atlantic accent. Yes, this is mid-Atlantic. This is not Southern. But yeah, I mean, it was so powerful. But now you're working on, and I didn't know this, so you're working on an hour-and-a-half version of this, a featured version.
Yeah, it's almost finished, actually. I'm doing a feature-length version of Jeff's story. So as you noticed, the short really focuses on Jeff's personal struggles and how he reintegrated into society and, how that impacted him personally. But the feature-length documentary goes into so much more, the justice system, what went wrong here. Jeff confessed to this crime that he didn't commit. So it goes into...
Oh, I didn't know that.
He did, which isn't in the short, obviously. So it goes into, why he did that and how any innocent person really confesses to something so horrific that they didn't do. Like, what's the psychology behind that? I talked to the Innocence Project lawyers who worked on his case to get him out, and his mom, what she went through and what it was like for her. Yeah. And then the DNA, if Jeff had been petitioning for the DNA to be tested, something like almost 10 years before he got out. And Janine Pirro denied, she was the DA at the time in Westchester County, and she denied getting the DNA tested. Had it been tested, he would have saved almost a decade of his, time in prison and been out much sooner, but they denied it every time. So it goes into a lot more of those details and his backstory and, how this happened.
And you mentioned the DNA, and that is such a huge element, and we don't think about it now. How many movies have we watched where, oh, we'll pull out the DNA and we'll know exactly who this is, and we take it for really granted today. No different than probably in the 80s and 90s, they took fingerprints for granted.
Yes.
Oh, well, your fingerprint's there. This matches your fingerprint. That means you did it. And I'll mention the Michael Connelly. I didn't know that DNA wasn't really being used till like the early 90s, 93, 94.
Yeah.
That's when it finally became like, hey, we can use this tool. And they started going back into cold cases and realizing what was out there.
Yeah.
It made such a difference for Jeff. And there's an element to this. If they'd have done what they were supposed to from Jump Street, and I'll leave this teaser out there for everyone, there would be another life still out there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's important to know that you see in this documentary. I keep giving myself chills. I don't know why, but I mean, because this is, I avoid politics on my show, and not because I don't like to talk politics.
Yes.
But I'm an okay person with us looking at the way we do business and the way we handle things, especially in places like New York that claim to be so progressive and so in the forefront. We're doing all these great things, and we're just special here.
Mm-hmm.
And then you realize I go past Ossining almost every single day that I go to work. The train tracks run straight through Ossining, and I see those walls every day.
Yeah.
And they're still there. They're still full. There's still no lack of people in there. So, you start realizing Jeff was going to be in there because I'm trying to be as politically, I don't give a shit. It's my show. I can
it's your show.
For all of you that are trying to figure out why everybody doesn't like the 94 crime bill, and I'll call it by that name, it's the reason why guys like Jeff were hurried up and convicted, and why people stay in jail for as long as they do, because they have 85% of your sentence has to be served so that the state receives funding. If you didn't know that, that's one of the biggest things in there. Mm. Yes, there is things in there that are great. The fact that the sex registry is in there, that's awesome. Jai, I have to give you this. This is for you. Read that. That's for you.
That's so funny.
Dave says, gorgeous guest, about time. Yes, she's a very beautiful woman. But that's one of those things. Like I have a very good friend of mine, Tom, and him and I talk about this all the time. That's why when I saw your stuff come across on Podcast Guest Directory and you were like, hey, this is what I've done, this is what I've addressed, I was like, I've got to talk to her. This is something I care about. This is something that matters to me. Nobody wants to be the one blamed for something they didn't do. And we have all the pieces to the puzzle in today's society to think about these things and do it right. And, wrong button. This is for you. I'll figure my buttons out. This is for you. And for what you did. This is, you get all the applause.
I'll take it. That's great.
I had to find my button as I ran through all my buttons, but it's just so amazing what you were able to do. So what can we find in the hour and a half version that we're not getting in the shorter version?
Yeah, you'll see, you'll hear interviews with Jeff's mom, as I mentioned. And, Jeff Jeff's mom was a single parent. His dad wasn't in his life. So what's really interesting when you talk to Jeff is that he says one of the reasons the detectives were kind of able to coerce a confession out of him and corner him this way is because for months they kind of groomed him and took him around to the crime scene sites and stuff and fed him information that he wouldn't have otherwise had. But they did it under this ruse that he could help with their investigation. And as a 16-year-old, Jeff's goal was to be a police officer when he was older. And so he took to these cops and detectives, whatever, as like, he looked up to them, and he had no father figure in his life. So he said that also helped them kind of get in with Jeff, because he was like, I don't have a father figure, but this man who is like the age of what would be my father is taking interest in me, taking me around in his cop car, letting me help with this investigation. It was the biggest crime that had happened in Peekskill in decades. And so Jeff felt like I'm helping in an important way. And it's exciting and fun for him being a 16-year-old at UK.
Went down the wrong hole.
Oh, I know that happened. Have some more water.
On live and in recording, me choking to death. Congratulations. This thing is going to go viral now.
It's happened to all of us. I hear a beeping behind me. I'm like, can you hear this?
It's funny. I hear the beeping also. I'm like, wonder what's going on.
I don't know what it is. Do you want me to find it?
No, that's okay.
I'm going to take you around and find it. Anyways,
we'll just walk the house, find the toddler. The toddler currently is actually making their own meal. Where's your husband? Where's your husband at? Let's talk to him. I want to talk to your husband and see what it was like for him as you're making documentaries. What was it like for him? Where's he hiding at?
Oh, yeah. I will let you talk to him. It'll have to be another day because he's on his own work calls still.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so funny.
And that makes I'm going to choke to death before this is all over with.
Take your time. Take your time.
All bad podcasting as I choke to death. It's good visual, bad podcasting. So it makes such sense that, here's a guy, again, who didn't have a father figure around, didn't have somebody. I got to ask, in the hour and a half version, because I would love to hear it, do you ever get to talk to any of the detectives that were involved or any of the DAs that were involved? Did any of those people at least have the guts to get on camera and discuss the case?
Not yet, but I also haven't reached out to them yet. And it's something I've been trying to figure out how to do because I imagine the answer will be a big fat no.
Oh, just ask them. Do you want me to ask them?
Yeah, I do.
Do you know their names?
I do.
Tell me their names now.
I don't remember them off the top of my head, no, but I do have them written down.
So to all four of my guests or four of my listeners that are actually listening, go figure out who these guys were and send them a message and ask them to talk to this lovely lady on her documentary and explain to us why they thought it was okay to come after a 16-year-old boy who was quiet and they groomed for a conviction. What did it do for him? And now that they know that they were wrong, how do they go to bed at night? That's what I want to know.
Yeah,
I couldn't live with myself.
Same. And the other thing, I know I couldn't either, but obviously these people are wired very differently than you and I because they were fine with doing this in the first place. But I often wonder too, like for the detective, for example, I think he was from that town. I mean, this is the only murder in your town for decades. Don't you want to get this killer off the streets? Like, don't you have your own personal motivation to get the right person? It's bizarre to me that this would be how they would choose to handle it. It makes no sense.
And folks, if you don't know where Peekskill is, it's a very, it's a Hudson River community, has one of the nicest parks you'll ever see by the river. It's beautiful park. Across on the other side from the park is these great restaurants. Taco Dive Bar is the name of one of them. I always go past it and I'm like, I need to check out a place called Taco Dive Bar. You have all these great things around there. And to think that this was, somebody just, you threw a child's life away.
Mm-hmm.
for a conviction rating.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
that's the way I see it. I like I said, it's one of those things I care about that I don't, and it's odd because it's not like it's happened to me. It's not like it happened to any family members of mine. Trust me, we could do a whole show about, my family and the dirt involved with them. We're a very colorful group. Um, and, and I'm proud of all of them, but nobody I know that was ever wrongly convicted. But I think that's part of it is the fact that this went down. Now,
Yeah.
do you have other films that you're working on besides just finishing this one? Other documentaries you're looking to get into?
Yeah, so there's a third one. I haven't started it yet because I'm in the research process of it. And it's a documentary, so I got to fact check everything and make sure it is what I think it is before I start filming it. But there is a third one I'm working on now. My goal really is to make films about people who are currently incarcerated, who are
Okay, so we're
wrongfully.
staying in that's the genre.
That's the reason I got into filmmaking. It's the only reason I switched careers. So that is all I want to work on. Yeah, because that was my sole purpose. And making films is so expensive and takes so much time that I don't want to make a film about something I'm not really passionate about because it's just too much time, effort, and money.
Now you bring up a point. Now I kind of was looking around. I snooped you out. I had to make sure all four of my listeners knew who they were listening to. So how do you? Again, we'll say it one more time. Go on to Prime, take the time, watch this documentary, Conviction. It's not the 12-part. There's a 12-part one called Conviction. You'll notice it. It has a young man. There's a bunch of awards. It's a black and white picture. Highly recommended. Matter of fact, my wife turned it on upstairs before I left. I don't know if she was if the 3-year-old went to bed or if she got to finish it or not. But to make a documentary, to get into this piece of it, how do you fund this?
So this one, my husband and I self-funded, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we did. And so for the next one, I'm really debating, actually. There are ways to crowdfund it. There are films crowdfund it. Yeah, exactly. Like through one of those. And there's film specific, Kickstarter type sites. So that might be a route I might go. Otherwise, you can always find executive producers who are really, interested in a topic or whatnot, or a filmmaker, and they can fund a good chunk of it. But I'm really, really debating that right now, because while the funding would really enable me to move faster and make the film faster, it always adds more hands, in the pot. And then I have a very clear vision of what I want the films to be. And I don't want other people telling me to do this or do that or make it different, or like you'll notice, we don't have any crime scene photos. There's nothing that's like, like shows on ID Discovery can be very, what's the word I'm looking for? Like sensationalized.
Yeah, sensational.
Yes.
These are actors. They're not the real people.
Yes. And I don't want any of that. So I'm very careful who I would allow to, get involved in any kind of funding, because I definitely don't want to take any of the films in that direction. So we'll see. You
have a question on the screen. That's my bride right there. That's my bride. She has a question for you.
So I don't know, to be honest, because this is my first one I've ever done.
The question was, how much does it cost to produce a documentary film? I was waiting for her husband to yell from in the back, way too much. I got this.
Yeah, it is. So for us, we spent about $15,000 on this short, and it's just a short. It's 21 minutes. So imagine an hour and a half. Long version would be a lot more than that. And also we did this one, I shot most of it myself. I went to New York Film Academy, and so I had 3 students that worked on it with me who did the rest of the filming. Because that's how I got into it. So that's not normal. 15,000 is so on the super low end, because I owned camera equipment already. I bought the audio equipment myself and just invested in it so that I wouldn't have to keep renting it or hiring an audio person that brings equipment with them. So this was really a bare bones way of doing it. So that's definitely not a fair number to give you, and I don't know what it costs.
Enough. It costs enough. No, my wife is probably going to try to do a documentary on a woman who gets rid of her husband's comic book collection and what happens afterwards. I have a very large one, but so you're going to stay it now. Is there any? So as you research and you're trying to figure out, like you said, you have the third one in mind. Is there one out there that you're like, this is the case that I would like to find out about. I would like to research this one, but it's your holy grail case.
Yeah, Adnan's case from Serial. 100% that's the case where I want to know what happened. Like, oh, I want to figure it out.
My wife is volunteering to be an extra if you need to. If you need me. She's more than happy. That's just so that I end up with all the kids and the grandkids so that she can get away. That's what that is.
Yeah, tell her she's in. Tell her
Look at that. Look at that, babe. You already had your audition, everything. It's done. You're in.
Tell her that documentaries don't need extras. But she can be on the crew. She can do something.
You can walk by. You can just the next time the train comes past, you can walk past at the same time. It's just be you walking past the camera. It's just, it's so, you really, you took up the mantle of something that, this is a modern day issue, and we, and it's one of those kind of things that we all talk about, yeah, that dude, he said he didn't do it. He did it. I know he did it because I talked to this guy who talked. It's all like the game telephone as kids. And it's really, and it's a growing genre. And my buddy Tim will be on our show next week. We're going to make a hard left turn next week also. So we're going to go from this like passionate discussion that it's something that I'm like, we really need to address. This is a real problem we have here. This is a real issue. A person who's not convicted that spends one day behind bars, that's a problem. We have a document that says a speedy and fair trial. That's a reason it exists. And then we have Tim, who next week we're going to be talking about game shows. Shows next week. But Tim has a great question. He says, do you see doing other genres eventually down the road, or do you see yourself only on this direction?
Right now, I don't see myself doing other genres. I am interested to do other things. But again, it just takes so much time and money, like years to make one film, that I just don't know that I'll be doing that. But who knows what the future holds? Like right now, I think for my next 4 projects, it's going to be this. So that's a lot of, I think so, because so we're pitching the feature-length doc to networks to see where it'll air. And I'm going to pitch it in 2 ways. One, either the feature-length film, the 1.5-hour long version, or a docu-series where each episode is about a different person. And so in that case, it would be, 1-hour-long episodes, and there'd be plenty of them, 6 of them or 8 of them. And so that would take up a lot of time and a lot of years, I should say. So yeah.
And Jeff and look, here's another teaser for you folks. And Jeff knows people you can talk to.
Yes, he does. This is exactly where the idea came from.
Look, let me tease that right like that. Let me flip that one right out there for you. And Jeff knows folks you can talk to.
You're really good at this, Sean.
I try. Someday I'll make $1 doing this, other than, drinking Telemar. Look, I finished my bottle of Telemar Dew. Telemar Dew. You could sponsor me also. There wasn't a lot in it. It wasn't a whole bottle. I'm not like a lush. Not today, at least. That'll be next week with Tim.
If you would have told me, I would have come prepared with my Jameson and it would have been a party.
We got to remember, this is the Above the Bar podcast. This is supposed to, remember, this is a bar conversation. This is like, you sat down at the end of a bar and somebody goes, man, I want to make a movie. Man, she made a movie.
That needed to be in your email. Like it needs to be in your email signature.
I failed this one. I failed. It's all right.
We'll talk again. And
you're the designated driver. But you're drinking water, so you're the designated driver today.
That's awesome. I don't like being the designated driver.
I've been following all your guests and their products. I drank vodka. Now I will watch Conviction after your quality guest. Don't ask me to dress and drag. Well, so the dress and drag is a very good friend of mine. Amanda Love came on, and Amanda Love is one of my closest friends, but he does the most amazing drag. He's a beautiful woman.
Well, Tim, that's hilarious. And I got to say, sorry, you thought your smoke alarm was on. I thought it was my smoke alarm. I apologize. The beeping is now gone.
Oh, that's so great. So before we close, I do have a suggestion for number 5, but it's not, this person was guilty.
Okay.
You gotta go. Go look up the Eggman, Mike Ross.
Okay.
The Eggman, Mike Ross. One of my other shows that I used to listen to. So as you can tell, I do my own podcast because I like podcasts. It was something I got into.
Yeah.
And Mike Ross, the Eggman, is a contemporary of Ted Bundy. And he only reason he was caught so quickly is he escalated so fast from like a little bit to, but he's, if I'm not mistaken, he's imprisoned up there at 5 points. So he's still alive and he's up in 5 points. And he was called the Eggman because his family owned a giant poultry farm in Connecticut.
Yeah.
And he committed his crimes in Ithaca.
And why do you think he'd be good? Like, why is he?
Oh, because it was of all. Well, first off, because I work with a guy named Mike Ross from New York. So to be able to go, Mike, look, there's a documentary about you would just be phenomenal to harass him. But the other side is if you listen to this one, because again, this was one of those like handsome man, all this other stuff.
Yeah.
But he escalated at he's one of these guys that as a serial killer went from 0 to 100. He wasn't like the one out in California that was like years and years and years, or Zodiac that was just like really over the top, or BTK. He went from like 0 to 100 in a matter of like months.
Crazy. I'm going to look him up for sure.
Yeah,
that's so weird.
Yeah, like New York State, if you didn't know it, folks, has like the serial killers or like crimes in New York are either I can't believe you did this and like the police are the bad guys, or I can't believe you did this because this guy really is out there.
Yeah.
There's the Gray Man. The Gray Man. That's another one.
I've heard of that one.
Oh gosh. We'll have to email back and forth, or I'll send you a message on Instagram. Check out. Also, we're going to have to check out your Instagram. They all have to check it out, follow you, make it popular, make this thing big and popular. All 4 of my listeners go out and find. But the Gray Man, that's Albert Fish. He's the boogeyman of Brooklyn.
Oh, I've heard that. From
the early 1900s, late 1800s, early 1900s.
Yes. Yes.
See, and I bring that up because, oh gosh, we're almost at an hour. I can't believe that.
I know, I can't either.
Because I wanted to get into the side, because you talked about this when I was looking over your stuff. Like, why do women love this genre?
Oh yeah, that's so interesting, right?
I don't care if we go over. If you got the time, I want to hear about this. Why do women love? Because my wife is the one that's like, I can't watch this horror movie unless you're home.
Oh, that's who I am too.
But sit down and watch something about how a wife chopped up her husband, put him in a blender, fed him to the dog, and like the neighbors, and told everyone he was on a business trip. That's perfectly fine. Let me talk to you about this. Why is this such a thing?
My husband says to me, because I'll be like, we'll have this one night to relax because, we have a 3-year-old, so there's no time for us to hang out, just the 2 of us. And every time he's like, want to watch a movie, and I'm like, a true crime documentary. He's like, how is this relaxing? Like, this is not relaxing, but it's always what I'm doing too. It's so interesting. So I read a New York Times article which talked about this, and like, just light bulbs were going off in my head. I was like, yes, this is why this is so me, because I've been obsessed with true crime stories forever, as long as I can remember. And they scare the crap out of me. And I can't watch them when I'm home alone. And then I can't sleep. And it's just this forever problem, but yet I just keep watching them. And this article was talking about why women do that. And it's partially because most of these crimes are usually against women. So of course, that it interests us because it's about, us as a whole. And then secondly, a lot of women watch them. You saw the list segment that I did on TV. Is that what you saw?
I was looking through so much stuff. I probably did. I was just going through. I was like, oh, I want to.
Oh, okay. I'm going to send it to you. Anyways, that's where I talked about this. It aired a couple weeks ago on TV. But so women also watch it because it's like it teaches them skills. Like if you're ever in this situation, how to get out of them.
Body?
No, not those skills.
This is like the burning bed. Oh my God.
No, if you're ever a victim of these crimes, what have other women done to like escape or get out of this situation? It's really interesting because I saw a show, and I mean this was more than a decade ago for sure, and I did exactly this. I watched it, and in the episode, a woman had been put in the trunk of a car and she was being abducted, and
I'm sorry. I can't. Like, I know where this is going. Please go ahead. I'm sorry. Please. I can't.
and she kicked out the tail light from inside the trunk and then stuck her arm or leg out or something. And the person driving behind her obviously saw an arm coming out of a tail light and was like,
Didn't
what the
think it
hell?
was a left turn signal.
Nope. And was like, what is happening? And that's kind of what saved her. And why is this, piece of information in my brain for my entire lifetime? And I constantly am like, oh, that's something I could do, but this is how women work when they watch those shows. We're like,
Makes perfect sense to me. I know where every exit is. So when the zombie apocalypse starts, I know how to get out of the room completely everywhere I go. I promise you.
See?
And that was because I watched Dawn of the Dead like many moons ago. Zombie apocalypse, I'm your man. I'm getting
wherever we go. My husband knows the exits. Always. It's like,
is he a prior service? Is he a prior service guy or
nope?
No. Okay, I was gonna say if he was a prior service guy.
No, he always knows the exits. It's kind of the same thing. You're scared of zombies, and we're scared of creepy dudes. That's just how life goes.
Zombies get me every time, and I'm the worst. In the other matter of fact, I'm sitting here looking at a book called "Here's Negan: The Walking Dead" on my rack, and then if you went into the other room, I have an entire wall dedicated to The Walking Dead.
That's so funny.
It's the same idea. Like, you took what was, I don't want to say your fear, but this thing that you had a passion about, and like you watch these ideas and you turn it into that. I'm the same. Zombies. There's not a lot of zombie documentaries I can do. Like, I don't think I can make a zombie documentary.
No, probably a good thing.
It's probably not good. Yeah, I won't do that. But I mean, so we'll get this all together, and please, when you get the hour and a half done, I would love to talk to you again. You are so wonderful to talk to. If you get it before all the big boys get a hold of you, us little folks down here that are like reaching up, going, Jia, please.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
please,
right.
More, reaching up for a little bit of the crumbs here. Please remember us, because I have a feeling that people are going to start seeing this. And if they get the hour and a half piece to it, because this is for those of you that aren't in New York, the reform stuff here in this state is like super like polarizing. Like, you have a better chance with like being a Trumpster and one of those whack jobs and getting away with that than like the polarization with this stuff. It's huge. And I mean, it's a tough one. It really is. So I have to tell you, what's Tom saying? And that's not creepy with the guy with the zombie book in the basement. She's thank God it's not even Zoom here, Tim. See, it's not Zoom. This is StreamYard, one of the sponsors of everything. So la.
So that makes his entire statement incorrect, because
your statement sucks. Just know that a lot of those are coming next week there, Tim. There's another one for you. This is
so
the
funny.
If folks wanted to find you, so I'll say it again, put it back up on the screen. There's you. Hopefully I spelled documentary right, because people up in this area of New York cannot say. Can you say that word for me? What is that third word on the screen right now?
Documentary.
Okay. People up in this area, in the Albany area, can't say that word.
What do you say?
I'm not from this area. It's documentary to me. Documentary.
Oh, that's so funny. I have heard people say that.
And you know what the other one they do up here?
Huh.
What's the first 5 years of school called?
Elementary.
See, you say elementary. I say elementary. They say elementary.
Oh, that's so funny.
And somebody's like, no, they don't. My son's school, 1st through 5th grade.
Yeah.
I like if you called the school and the answer machine picked up, it would go, "Thank you for calling Ford's Ferry Elementary School." I'm like, the hell's it elementary? That's not even a word.
You can't work at the school if you call it that.
Yeah, you're supposed to educate my child, not make this worse. So where can we find you at?
The best place would be my website, and it's just jiawertz.com, just how my name is spelled, JIAWERTZ. That's where all the screenings are listed and everything else, and a link to obviously watch the film. And then on Instagram, it's Jia Docs, short for documentary. And on Facebook, the film's Facebook page is Conviction Documentary.
And if you go and you look up our stuff, we follow Jia on there, so you can find Jia Docs, and that's at JIADOCS. You can find her on there. Again, the website, correct me, it's JIAWERTC documentary, or just what's the web one more time?
Just JiaWertz.com.
Okay.
Yep.
JIAWERTZ for the website. Take the time, folks. Go out and check this out. I can't say enough to you how much I was like you instantaneously root for Jeff.
Yeah.
If you don't root for Jeff instantaneously, check your soul at the door. That's the only way I can describe this, is check your soul at the door, because it's just one of those kind of things. If you're looking for us, we're on Instagram at above the bar podcast, or Twitter above the bar 4, email the above the bar podcast at gmail.com. Whatever you are watching or listening to this, if you're on our YouTube, if you're on our Facebook, please take the time, hit the like and subscribe. This is my passion project. I get to hide out in my basement for an hour and an excuse to drink. And my wife doesn't argue with me. So it's my passion project. Look at that. It doesn't get any better. Take a moment. You can watch my skunked beard as I realize, God, I got to give Doug a call from Phoenix Shaving. Fix that. Also, if you want some merch, we have our merch at TeePublic. Go on TeePublic and look up the Above the Bar podcast. As I keep saying, somebody other than me is going to buy this stuff. I'm the only one that buys it. Hey, guess what? When this is all done, make sure I get your address and everything. And I'm going to send you a t-shirt for being a guest. It's like a consolation prize.
I would love that.
It's a consolation prize for coming on the show. It's like my forgiveness gift to you. Thank you for coming.
This is so awesome. And I'm excited to have a t-shirt. I'll be Instagramming that.
Excellent. Look, then we might get somebody else. But please go on the above. Check out TeePublic. Check out the Above the Bar podcast. If somebody buys this t-shirt and you put it onto something and you hashtag it, the Above the Bar podcast, I make you a promise. The winner, after I have at least 2 or 3 of you that do it, I will buy you a nice little gift bag. We'll figure out what kind of cell phone you have, all those little things, and we'll send it all to you. Jia, you get the last word here. What is it?
Oh, goodness. I don't know. I was so happy to be here. It was so awesome to talk to you. And I'll absolutely be back when the feature-length film comes out. You're great.
Thank you so much. All right, folks, be sure to push your stool in.
This has been an Earplug Podcast presentation. Found on earplugpodcast.com, iTunes, SoundCloud, and wherever your favorite podcasts are found.